Greetings, Mind Crafters, and welcome to the TGIF version of the Minecraft podcast. My name is Dr. Kimberly Quinn, and I'm super stoked. I'm in Utah. You can see the gorgeous mountains over there. I just have to stay this way so we don't get, randos behind me that maybe don't want to be a part of all the fun we're having. So anyway, what I wanted to talk about today is that, because I'm doing a talk on this in 2 days. That's why I'm here in Utah, actually. So it's in my head. So let's talk about, the whole idea. Well, it's not just an idea, it's a reality. We are all born with inherent value. All of us, every single one of us, are born with inherent value, with that feeling of original worthiness. And in the talk that I'm doing in 2 nights, I bring up a story that with our youngest daughter, Delaney, that was several years ago, and I took her to the beach. It wasn't much of a beach day. It was kind of cloudy and not a lot of people. And she was laying there on her tummy on a blanket with this huge textbook. She was taking a summer course, early college if I remember right. It was something brainy. Anyway, so over came this adorable little cherub. I would say she was probably about 15 months old. She has a cute little sun hat on. Her little cheeks were kind of flowing out of it. She plunked herself down on the blanket. And then, of course, our daughter Delaney smiled at her. And this precious baby girl smiled back at Delaney with this semi-toothless grin. Just absolutely adorable. And then she proceeded to stick her pudgy, very sandy little fist into Delaney's bag of goldfish crackers, which of course was adorable too. And then she kind of swung her hand out over towards her mama, who was kind of watching endearingly from about 10 or 12 feet away, as if to say, Mama, look at the treasures I just scored at this awesome blanket party. And I thought to myself, in that moment, I knew it was going to be a talk for another time. And it was. This is actually the second time, because it was also part of one of my TED Talks a while back, a few years ago. And so that's what I'm going to share with the folks on Thursday, because I knew in that moment it was going to be a talk for another time. And the time is now. Why? Because think about what happened with that little baby. She knew without any doubt that she was welcome to the blanket party, didn't she? She knew that she would accept and love, be loved, adored, cherished, all the things. She didn't question it. She knew that she could help herself to goldfish crackers and that she would be adorable doing so. And so something happened, because this little precious cherub was still in touch, in tune with her own inherent value, the feeling of being valuable that she was born with, right? We are all born with it. And then something happens, doesn't it? Something happens where, there's harmful messages and life experiences and things that something happens where we end up spending the rest of our 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond trying to get the feeling that little girl still had back. So the whole idea of this talk is about, it's called actually, is there a virus in your hard drive? Because shame really is a virus. It's a mental, spiritual, emotional virus that just can corrupt and destroy everything in its path, like any other virus. I'm thinking of a computer, like a virus that just destroy everything, and it overwrites our original programming with harmful messages. And just like a computer, we slowly begin to believe these. And we start making agreements with ourselves. Hearing all these harmful messages, and we begin to agree with them ourselves. You're not the smart one, you're not the artistic one, you're not the athletic one, you always do this, you always do that. And then we're small children and teenagers, and we bring that right into adulthood. And then here's the kicker, is once that's internalized, it's not just something we have, like a suitcase, we can put it down. We begin to identify with it. I am this, or I'm not that, or whatever it is that's harmful and toxic. And I say this in the talk, that shame is actually the spiritual and emotional equivalent of drinking turpentine for breakfast rather than orange juice. It is actually poison, because it's much different than guilt. Guilt has the message of I made a mistake. It actually has a job, because guilt keeps us from, like saying bad things, hurting people, slashing people's tires, punching them in the schnozy, whatever it is. And once we get it and fix it and whatever, if that's possible, right, then shame doesn't have a job anymore. Guilt doesn't have a job anymore. Shame, instead of saying I made a mistake like guilt does, right? I made a mistake. Shame says I am the mistake. Shame is that feeling of being flawed, defective, broken, damaged goods, right? And so that's what the talk's going to be on Thursday. And then there's a workshop about it and how to put all that stuff back together. So really the main thing to do is to get back in touch with our own inherent value and form new agreements. So that's what a lot of the workshop is going to be, is how to form new agreements with ourselves to undo those, because just like a computer can take on viruses that corrupt and destroy it, obviously we can cleanse a computer too. Well, the mind can be rewired. The mind can be rewired also, and whatever basically is done can be undone in the mind, and we can learn lots of different things. Number one is we want to shift out of victim mode into a step back in our power, and we can do that by understanding that we can change. Any of us can change, and often that's just enough of a mojo to do so, really. And I realize it also takes courage. You got to put one foot in front of the other, and also patience. We have to have patience to change, because we can go 2 steps forward and 1 back, and this happens a lot when we're trying to undo stuff, messaging that happened in our childhood. And it's really, really, that's way okay. And what we do when we take 1 step back is we wrap around ourselves with love and kindness and compassion, and say, listen, you already flipped the light switch on. It's on. You're on the path to healing and resilience and becoming stronger than you were before. And then so what, you want to step backwards, so what, you went 2 steps backwards, you're aware of it. So once that switch is on, it cannot be turned off, because you know what it's like to feel a little bit better now. And that's what we're talking about with shame. And also, whenever you're having a surge of this stuff, you get shameful stuff surging, it's important to seek higher ground. And whether that might be, a therapist, because none of these videos, by the way, are in place of professional treatment, but to seek higher ground, make the phone call, talk to somebody you love and who loves you, to kind of talk you away from that. Because the more we allow those old repetitive conversations to happen, the stronger they get. So we don't want to feed it. We don't want to feed it. We want it because allowing old toxic shame memories back into our self-talk dialogue is like dumping lighter fluid on a fire. I mean, it's better to let the fire smolder and burn out, because that's the fastest way it's going to go. Because whatever we give attention to is just like a toddler having a tantrum, right? Whatever we give attention to, it gets stronger. The brain loves patterns. And the other thing with that, and I can tell you with my degree in cognitive psychology, because I love talking about memory, is whenever we allow old memories to surface, which includes the good ones, right? Because long-term memory is kind of like a bookshelf. So if you take the book off the shelf, from that award you won, you got all these kudos, and I have a bunch of those I save for when I feel like I need to be empowered. I kind of get myself in that meditative place of when I earned the Teaching and Excellence Award. I save that one for I really need a lift. You can do that. It works for you. Although, sadly, it can work against you, because often this is where autopilot takes us, is to the not-so-good memories. We don't usually land in autopilot into good memories. It's usually those nasty shame viruses trying to pull us back in. So if it's a memory from 2 years ago, 10 years ago, 2 weeks ago, whatever, when we pull the memory back, the attached emotion, the emotion is with it too. It's attached like a barnacle on a dolphin. So you got to know that. So the best thing to do with these old shame memories, right, is to seek higher ground. And again, realize that we have control here. We've talked about the brain being a thoroughbred horse, right? That magnificent horse running around like the Kentucky Derby, let's say. Beautiful, majestic. And the jockey weighs about 95 pounds. So think about yourself as a jockey on that magnificent horse. And that jockey controls the horse. You can control your brain just like the jockey controls the horse. And once we get that, we can really kind of make it a mission to be very, very, very diligent with the thoughts we allow to circle around in our minds. So if you've got a lot of shame-basedness to you, which I absolutely have had from the ground up, just realize that you're in for a journey, and it's going to take a lot of work, a lot of effort, a lot of courage, a lot of stick-to-itness, a lot of patience, but if you're in it to win it, just like that thoroughbred horse, you can do it. And there's a lot more to this, so we'll do another video on it. Realizing too, seek higher ground, and realize that life happens for us, not to us, because we don't, thinking the reverse of that keeps us trapped in victimhood. And that can feel like power, being a victim, but it's really an illusion. Just like when we hang on to anger, we feel all kinds of powerful when we're angry, and it has a half-life, and it actually takes away our power. So in order to shift into that power, we got to realize that life is happening for us. We do not grow without adversity. We might not feel like we want adversity, but the real deal is we don't grow without adversity. And like Tony Robbins would say, the minute personal growth stops, so does happiness. Think about some of the times in your life when, man, you just rose up to it. You look back, you're like, wow, handled that like a champion. Usually those times are not, you survived Disney World. It's not usually the case. Usually the adversity is something super hard and challenging, and you did it. And each and every time we conquer something, small to large, any of it, it's a deposit in the self-esteem bank. We get better and better and better. We are living the best, highest versions of ourselves. And when the next thing happens, which it will, because life's like a lasagna noodle, right? The ups and downs, we'll handle the next thing even better, even though if it's not the same context, because we get good at challenges. Anything we practice, we inevitably get better at. It's how it works. And fighting off the shame monsters isn't different. And remember that it's not resistance we want to do. We don't want to throw a bunch of resistance at it. That keeps it alive. We want to shift away from it. Just like a toddler having a tantrum, we want to actually ignore it. Any attention is reinforcing, even whether it's negative attention or positive attention. You're reinforcing that toddler to keep doing it. So ignoring something is the quickest way to extinguish a behavior, and it's also true when those old shameful messages are trying to show up again. Shift out of it into a more positive place and seek higher ground. Have a good day.